The transport shuttle descended through the artificial atmosphere of Station Kronos, and Danny Martinez pressed his face against the small window. Below him stretched the largest military training facility in known space. The station was massive, with training grounds that could simulate a dozen different planetary environments. Somewhere down there, he would spend the next 6 months being pushed harder than he had ever been pushed before. Danny was 23 years old, average height for a human, with dark hair and a lean build. He carried a single duffel bag with everything he owned. The other passengers on the shuttle were quiet, their faces showing a mixture of nervousness and determination. Most of them were Crothians, tall reptilian beings with scales that gleamed like polished stone. A few were from other species he had only seen in videos. He was the only human. The shuttle landed with a soft thump, and the doors hissed open. The recruits filed out onto a wide parade ground. The air was cool and crisp, adjusted to a temperature that all species could tolerate. Danny followed the others, his boots clicking against the metal surface. Around them, enormous buildings rose toward the domed ceiling of the station. In the distance, he could hear sounds of combat training, weapons fire from practice ranges, and shouted commands. A figure stood waiting for them at the center of the parade ground. He was Crothian, nearly 8 feet tall, with deep green scales and eyes that seemed to glow with an inner fire. His uniform was crisp and covered with ribbons and medals. This was Drill Sergeant Vexthor, and every recruit in the galaxy knew his name. He had trained soldiers for 40 years. He had seen thousands of recruits come through his program. Most of them failed. The recruits formed a ragged line in front of him. Vexthor walked slowly along the line, his heavy footsteps echoing across the parade ground. He looked at each recruit carefully, studying them like a predator sizing up prey. When he reached the end of the line, he turned and walked back to the center. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," Vexthor said. His voice was deep and rough, like grinding stones. "You are here because your worlds believe you have potential. They are probably wrong. This facility has a 60% dropout rate. That means most of you will fail. You will give up. You will go home and tell everyone that you tried your best, but it was not good enough." He paused, letting his words sink in. Some of the recruits shifted uncomfortably. Danny stood still, his hands at his sides, his eyes forward. "This program was designed by the finest military minds from a dozen worlds," Vexthor continued. "It will test your strength, your endurance, your intelligence, and your will. It will find every weakness you have and exploit it. It will push you past what you think are your limits, and when you are lying on the ground, broken and exhausted, it will push you further." Vexthor began walking along the line again. "The warriors who graduate from this program go on to serve in the Interstellar Defense Force. They protect billions of lives across hundreds of worlds. They face dangers that would make cowards weep. We need only the best. We need only those who cannot be broken." He stopped directly in front of Danny. The drill sergeant was twice his height and probably 5 times his weight. His glowing eyes looked down at the small human recruit. "A human?" Vexthor said. "How interesting. Tell me your name." "Danny Martinez, sir," Danny said clearly. "Danny Martinez," Vexthor repeated. "Do you know that humans have the weakest physical capabilities of any species in this program? No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no heightened senses. You are soft and fragile." "Yes, sir," Danny said. "The Crothians have trained for war for 10,000 years, Vexthor said. "The Chitara have exoskeletons that can withstand impacts that would crush you instantly. The lumens can process information faster than your primitive brain can even register. And you think you belong here with them?" "Yes, sir," Danny said. Vexthor leaned down, bringing his face close to Danny's. "This program is designed to break the toughest warriors from a dozen worlds." Danny looked up at the massive drill sergeant. He did not flinch. He did not look away. A small smile touched the corner of his mouth. "So when does it start?" Danny asked. The parade ground went silent. The other recruits stared in shock. No one spoke to Drill Sergeant Vexthor that way. A Crothian female near Danny made a soft, hissing sound of disbelief. An insectoid Chitara's antennae twitched nervously. Even a crystalline lumen recruit who normally showed no emotion seemed to shine a little brighter with surprise. Vexthor straightened up slowly. His eyes narrowed as he studied Danny's face. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the drill sergeant smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "It starts now," Vexthor said quietly. "Drop and give me 50 push-ups, all of you. If the human fails to complete them, everyone does another 50. The recruits dropped to the ground. Danny got into position and started his push-ups. His arms burned, but he kept going. Around him, the Crothians moved easily, their powerful muscles making the exercise look simple. The Chitara recruit barely seemed to notice the effort, but Danny kept pace, counting each repetition in his head. At 40, his arms were shaking. At 45, he thought they might give out.
But he pushed through. 50 push-ups completed.
He stood up with the others, breathing hard but standing straight. "Run to the far wall and back," Vexthor commanded. Double time. "Move!" The recruits ran. The Crothians pulled ahead immediately, their long legs eating up the distance. The Chitara was even faster, its multiple legs carrying it across the parade ground in seconds. Danny ran as fast as he could, but he was clearly the slowest. When he finally returned, the others had been waiting for almost a minute. "Again," Vexthor said.
They ran again.
And again. And again. By the 5th run, 2 of the Crothian recruits were breathing hard. By the 7th, one of them stopped and bent over, gasping. Danny was still running, slower than everyone else, but still running. "Halt!" Vexthor finally called. The recruits stopped, most of them exhausted. "How was your warm-up?" "Collect your gear and report to barracks assignment. You have 10 minutes. Tomorrow at dawn, we begin actual training." The recruits scattered, heading for their bags. Danny grabbed his duffel and looked for the barracks number he had been assigned. A shadow fell over him. He looked up to see the Crothian female from earlier. She was tall and powerful, with dark red scales and intelligent eyes. "I am Zara," she said. "That was either very brave or very stupid, what you said to the drill sergeant." "Maybe both," Danny said with a shrug. "He will make your life miserable," Zara said. "He will push you harder than anyone else. He will look for every opportunity to make you quit." "Okay," Danny said simply. Zara tilted her head, studying him. "You do not seem worried."
I'm worried, Danny admitted.
"But being worried doesn't change anything. I'm here to finish the program. Everything else is just noise." "Interesting," Zara said. "Most humans I have met are more emotional. More reactive." "Oh, I'm definitely emotional," Danny said. "I just don't let it run the show." "What barracks are you assigned to?" "Block 7, Zara said. "Same," Danny said. "Guess we're roommates. Or barracks mates, whatever the term is." They walked together toward the looming barracks building. Behind them, Vexthor watched the small human recruit disappear into the building. The drill sergeant's assistant, an older Crothian named Court, approached him. "You think he will last a week?" Court asked. "I give him 3 days. Maybe 4 if he is stubborn." "And if you are wrong?" Vexthor smiled again, that predatory expression that made even experienced soldiers nervous. "Then things will get very interesting." The alarm blared through the barracks at 4 in the morning. Danny was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bunk and lacing his boots. Around him, the other recruits stumbled out of their beds, groaning and cursing in various languages. Zara dropped from the bunk above his, landing with practiced grace despite the early hour. "You are awake already?" she asked, surprised. "Couldn't sleep much," Danny admitted. "Too excited, I guess." "Excited?" A Chitara recruit named Clicks chittered from across the room. His translator device rendered it as laughter. "You are excited to be tortured by Vexthor? Humans are strange." "Yeah, we get that a lot," Danny said, standing up and stretching. They had 5 minutes to get dressed and assemble outside. Danny made it with time to spare. Some of the others barely made it at all. Vexthor stood waiting in the pre-dawn darkness, looking as fresh as if he had slept 12 hours instead of probably none at all. "Today we begin conditioning," Vexthor announced. "Physical strength is the foundation of everything. Without it, you cannot carry your equipment. You cannot march for days. You cannot survive combat. We will build that foundation, or you will break trying." The first exercise was carrying weighted packs up a hill. The packs were designed to be proportionally heavy for each species. Danny's pack was adjusted for human strength, which meant it weighed about 60 pounds. For the Crothians, their packs were over 200 pounds. They shouldered them easily. Danny struggled to get his pack on, but once he had it settled, he started walking. The hill was steep. Danny's legs burned within the first 100 yards. The Crothians moved ahead of him steadily. Click scuttled past on his 6 legs, making it look effortless. A lumen named Prism floated slightly, using energy fields to reduce the effective weight. Danny just kept putting one foot in front of the other. Halfway up, his lungs were screaming. His legs felt like they were made of lead. Sweat poured down his face despite the cool air. 2 Crothian recruits had already dropped their packs and quit, walking back down the hill in shame. Danny kept climbing. Near the top, Zara appeared beside him. She had already reached the summit and come back down. "Do you need assistance?" she asked. "Not allowed," Danny gasped. "Has to be. Individual effort." You are moving very slowly, Zara observed. Yeah, but I'm moving, Danny said. That's what counts. He reached the top 10 minutes after everyone else. Vexthor was there, watching him with those glowing eyes. Danny dropped his pack and bent over, hands on his knees trying to catch his breath. Pathetic time, Vexthor said. But you finished. That is more than I expected. Again. Everyone. They did the hill 5 more times. By the 3rd run, another Crothian dropped out. By the 5th, even Zara was breathing hard. Danny finished last every single time, but he finished. The next exercise was worse. They had to carry heavy equipment across an obstacle course. The equipment was deliberately awkward, designed to be difficult to handle. For Danny, it was a metal beam that weighed 80 pounds and was 12 feet long. For the others, their equipment was proportionally larger. The Crothians used their superior strength to simply power through, holding the beams over their heads and walking steadily. Clix used his multiple limbs to balance his load. Prism used energy manipulation to make it easier. Danny could not do any of those things. He tried carrying the beam on his shoulder, but it was too long and kept hitting obstacles. He tried dragging it, but that was too slow. Finally, he found a way to balance it across his back and shoulders, using his arms to stabilize it. It was awkward and slow, but it worked. Creative, Zara said when she passed him going back for her 2nd run. But creativity will not save you when you lack strength. Maybe, Danny said. But it's keeping me in the game right now. By the end of the day, Danny was exhausted. Every muscle in his body hurt. His hands were blistered from gripping the equipment, but he had completed every exercise. He had finished last in everything, but he had finished. That night in the barracks, Zara found him stretching his sore muscles. Why do you do that? She asked. Stretching? Helps with recovery. Keeps you flexible. No, I mean, why do you continue? Zara said. You are clearly the weakest here. Every exercise is harder for you than for anyone else. You could request a transfer to a human-only unit. No one would think less of you. Danny looked at her thoughtfully. Can I ask you something? Why do Crothians value honor so much? Honor is everything, Zara said immediately. It defines who we are. It separates warriors from cowards. Okay, but why? Danny pressed. What makes honor valuable? Zara seemed confused by the question. It simply is.
It is our nature.
Right, Danny said. Well, for humans, we value something called perseverance. We don't have natural armor or great strength or special abilities. For most of our history, we were prey animals. Everything on our planet was stronger than us or faster than us or had bigger teeth, but we survived because we refused to give up. We kept trying. We adapted. We found another way. So this is honor for you? Zara asked. Not exactly, Danny said. It's more like proof. Proof that we belong here. That we can hang with species that are naturally better than us at almost everything. I'm not trying to beat you in a straight fight. I'm trying to prove that I can stand next to you anyway. Zara was quiet for a moment. That is an interesting perspective. Over the next week, the training intensified. Sleep deprivation exercises, where they had to stay awake for 48 hours straight while performing complex tasks. Danny used every mental trick he knew, pinching himself, moving constantly, talking to himself. When hallucinations started creeping in, he acknowledged them and kept going. Heavy equipment drills where they had to move artillery pieces across rough terrain. Danny could not match the Crothians for raw power, so he used leverage. He found ways to roll equipment instead of lifting it, used ramps made from debris, worked smarter instead of harder. Vexthor increased the pressure on Danny specifically, extra exercises. Shorter time limits, heavier weights. The drill sergeant seemed determined to find his breaking point, but Danny had learned something growing up in a rough neighborhood on Earth. Everyone has a breaking point, but the distance to that point can stretch further than anyone expects. When you think you are done, you usually have more left. The body has reserves it does not want to use. The mind can push past pain that seems unbearable. On the 10th day, during free time, Zara joined Danny for extra training. He was practicing pull-ups on a bar, trying to build the upper body strength he lacked compared to other species. You do not have to do extra work, Zara said. You are already completing all required exercises. Barely, Danny said between repetitions. I need to be better. Why does it matter so much to you? Zara asked. Danny dropped from the bar and looked at her. Can I tell you something? When I was a kid, I was small for my age. Got picked on a lot. My dad told me something that stuck with me. He said the world doesn't care about your excuses. It only cares about results. So you can either make excuses or you can make progress. Not both. Your father sounds wise, Zara said. He was, Danny said quietly. He died when I was 15, worked himself to death trying to provide for us. But he never complained, never quit, just kept going every day.
He grabbed the bar again.
So that's what I do. I keep going. Zara watched him do another set of pull-ups. Then she said something unexpected. Will you teach me? Teach you what? Danny asked. This mental toughness you speak of, Zara said. Physical strength I have, but when things become truly difficult, when my body fails, my mind wants to quit. You seem to have a method for pushing past that point. Danny smiled. It's actually pretty simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. They trained together that night. Danny explained techniques for managing pain, for breaking overwhelming tasks into smaller pieces, for finding motivation when everything hurt. Zara listened carefully, asking questions, trying to understand this very human approach to overcoming limitations. Clicks found them later and joined in. Then Prism came, curious about what they were doing. Soon a small group had formed, all of them interested in learning what kept the weakest recruit going when stronger beings were dropping out. From a window above, Vexthor watched the training session. Cord appeared beside him. The human is influencing the others, Cord observed. Yes, Vexthor said thoughtfully. Should we stop it? No, Vexthor said. Let us see where this goes. The second week trials begin tomorrow. Combat simulations. That will be his true test. The second month of training brought a different kind of challenge. Physical conditioning continued, but now they added psychological warfare training. Vexthor gathered all the recruits in a large briefing room on the first day of the new phase. Physical strength means nothing if your mind breaks, the drill sergeant announced. The enemy will use fear, confusion, and manipulation against you. They will find what terrifies you most and use it as a weapon. This month, you will face your deepest fears in simulations designed specifically for your species. Danny listened carefully. Around him, the other recruits shifted nervously. Everyone knew this phase had the highest dropout rate. Each species has natural psychological vulnerabilities, Vexthor continued. Crothians fear dishonor above all else. Chitara fear isolation from the hive mind. Lumens fear chaos and unpredictability. Humans fear loss and helplessness. We will exploit these fears until you learn to master them. The simulations began that afternoon. They were run in special chambers that used advanced technology to create incredibly realistic scenarios. Danny watched as Zara entered her chamber first. Through the observation window, he could see her face change as the simulation began. She was experiencing something that challenged her sense of honor, some scenario where she had to choose between following orders and doing what she believed was right. When Zara emerged 30 minutes later, she looked shaken. Her scales had paled slightly, and her hands trembled. Are you okay? Danny asked. It felt completely real, Zara said quietly. I watched my entire unit die because I followed orders that I knew were wrong. I could have saved them, but it would have meant disobeying my commander. In Crothian culture, that is unthinkable. But the simulation forced me to live with the consequences of blind obedience. That sounds rough, Danny said. It was designed to break me, Zara said. And it nearly did. Clicks went next. The Chitara emerged, looking disoriented and distressed. In his simulation, he had been cut off from all contact with other Chitara, experiencing complete isolation for what felt like weeks. For a species that lived in constant mental connection with their hive, it was torture. Prism simulation involved complete randomness where logic failed. The crystalline being came out flickering erratically, its usual calm shattered by unpredictable chaos. Then it was Danny's turn. He entered the chamber and sat in the designated chair. The walls around him began to shimmer and change. Suddenly he was no longer on Station Kronos. He was on a battlefield. Smoke filled the air. Explosions echoed in the distance, and around him were bodies. He recognized them immediately. Zara, Clicks, Prism, and others from his training unit. They were all dead or dying. Danny's heart hammered in his chest. He knew it was not real, but his body did not care. It reacted as if the danger were genuine. A figure appeared through the smoke. It was Vexthor, but something was wrong with his image. He looked disappointed, disgusted even. This is your fault, Martinez, the simulated Vexthor said. You were squad leader. You made the wrong call. Everyone trusted you, and you let them die. You were not strong enough. Not smart enough. Not good enough. Danny felt his throat tighten. The simulation continued. He heard voices of his teammates calling for help, asking why he had abandoned them. The scenario shifted, and he was in a command center, watching on screens as missions failed, people died, and disasters unfolded. Each time, the simulation made it clear that his decisions had caused the failures. It would have been easy to break down. The guilt felt overwhelming. The sense of responsibility crushed down on him. But Danny had learned something during his difficult childhood. Guilt was just another feeling, and feelings could be acknowledged without controlling you. He took a deep breath. "Okay," he said out loud to himself. "This hurts. This feels terrible. But it's not real, and even if it were real, falling apart would not help anyone." The simulation intensified, showing him more terrible outcomes, more people suffering because of his inadequacy. Danny felt tears on his face, but he kept his breathing steady. He felt the pain, acknowledged it, and then set it aside to focus on what needed to be done. The scenario changed again. Now he was back on the battlefield, but this time he had a chance to save someone. One person was still alive, calling for help. Danny moved toward them, ignoring the simulated wounds on his own body, ignoring the voice of the fake Vexthor telling him it was useless. He reached the survivor and began applying first aid, following proper procedures, staying focused on the task. The simulation threw more obstacles at him. Enemy fire, collapsing structures, time pressure. Danny worked through each problem methodically, refusing to panic. Finally, the simulation ended. The walls returned to normal. Danny sat in the chair, his heart still racing, his face wet with tears. But he had completed the scenario. He stood up on shaky legs and walked out of the chamber. Vexthor was waiting outside with the other instructors. They looked surprised. "How do you feel, Martinez?" Vexthor asked. "Like I got hit by a truck," Danny admitted. "But I'm okay." "You were crying," one of the other instructors observed, a lumen named Crystal. "It hurt. The simulation found what scared me most, which is letting down people who depend on me. But hurting does not mean quitting." Vexthor studied him carefully. "Most recruits either break down completely or shut down emotionally. You did neither. Explain." Danny thought about how to put it into words. Back on Earth, there is this saying about pain. It says pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You cannot always control what you feel, but you can control what you do with those feelings. I felt everything the simulation wanted me to feel. I just did not let it stop me from doing what needed to be done. "Fascinating," Crystal said. "This is not how we expected a human to respond." Over the next few days, the other recruits went through their simulations multiple times. Each session was tailored to push them further, to find the exact point where their minds would break. Some recruits washed out, unable to handle the psychological pressure. Others became withdrawn and depressed. Danny found himself in an unexpected role. During evening hours, other recruits started coming to him with their struggles. Zara talked about her confusion over honor versus practical morality. Clix discussed his fear of being alone. Prism sought help dealing with uncertainty. Danny listened to each of them and shared what he knew about managing difficult emotions. He explained that you could acknowledge fear without being controlled by it. You could feel pain without letting it define you. You could experience doubt and keep moving forward anyway. In human psychology, we have this concept called emotional regulation, Danny explained one evening to a group that had gathered around him. It does not mean not feeling things. It means feeling things and then choosing how to respond. Your emotions give you information, but you get to decide what to do with that information. "How did you learn this?" Zara asked. "Therapy, mostly," Danny said honestly. "After my dad died, I was angry all the time, got in fights, made bad choices. A counselor at school taught me these techniques. Saved my life, probably." "Humans have professionals who teach mental resilience?" Clix asked, his antennae twitching with interest. "Sure," Danny said. "We need them because we feel everything so intensely. We are emotional creatures, so we had to develop ways to work with our emotions instead of being destroyed by them." Prism pulsed with curiosity. "This is considered a weakness among humans?" "Sometimes," Danny admitted. "But the smart ones realized it is actually a strength. Emotions give us motivation, help us connect with others, drive us to achieve things. The trick is learning to ride the wave instead of drowning in it." The group trained together after that conversation, practicing emotional regulation techniques. They meditated, talked through their fears, and supported each other. It became an informal support network within the larger training program. Vexthor observed all of this from a distance. One evening, Court found him watching the recruits through a window. "The human has created a support structure," Court said. "Should we discourage it? Warriors must be independent." "Must they?" Vexthor asked. "Or have we been training warriors incorrectly? Watch them. They are not weaker for supporting each other. They are stronger." But the human is still the weakest physically, Court pointed out. Yes, Vexthor agreed. But he has become the strongest link in their chain. When others falter, he holds them together. When they doubt, he reminds them why they are here. This is leadership, Court. True leadership. So you no longer believe he will break? Vexthor smiled that predatory smile. Oh, I still intend to try to break him, but now I am curious to see what happens if I fail. Next week we begin combat simulations. Real tactical scenarios where his physical weakness will be a severe disadvantage. Let us see if his mental strength can compensate for what his body lacks. And if it can? Court asked. Then we will have discovered something important about what makes a warrior truly unbreakable, Vexthor said, and perhaps we will need to reconsider how we define strength itself. In the barracks that night, Danny lay in his bunk, exhausted but unable to sleep. Zara's voice came from the bunk above. Danny? Are you awake? Yeah, he said. Thank you, Zara said quietly, for helping us, for showing us a different way to think about fear and pain. No problem, Danny said. We are all in this together, right? Yes, Zara agreed. Together. That is a very human concept. But I am beginning to understand why it matters. The final month arrived with an announcement that made every recruit tense. Vexthor stood before them on the parade ground, his expression more serious than they had ever seen. You have survived physical conditioning and psychological trials, he said. Now comes the gauntlet. This is a 10-day continuous simulation that combines everything you have learned. Combat, survival, strategy, and leadership. You will be tested individually and as teams. 80% of recruits fail the gauntlet. Most of you will not graduate. He paused, letting that sink in. You will be dropped into a hostile environment simulation. Your teams will be separated. You must survive, complete objectives, and reunite at an extraction point. The simulation adapts to your choices. There is no single correct path. Teams that fail must restart the entire training program from day one. Danny felt his stomach tighten. 6 months of brutal training, and it all came down to this. You have 2 hours to prepare, Vexthor said. Gather your equipment. Study your mission briefings. Then we begin. The recruits scattered. Danny found himself with Zara, Clix, Prism, and 2 other recruits in a team briefing room. They reviewed their equipment and mission parameters. The objective seemed straightforward. Survive the drop, reach the rally point, then move to the extraction zone together. It will not actually be straightforward, Zara said, reading Danny's expression. The gauntlet is famous for being impossible. Nothing is impossible, Danny said. Just really, really difficult. Your optimism is admirable, Prism stated, its crystalline form pulsing. But statistical analysis suggests our success probability is approximately 32%. So we are the 32%, Danny said with a shrug. 2 hours later, they were in drop pods, descending into the simulation. Danny felt his pod shake and rattle. Warning lights flashed. Then came a tremendous impact. His pod had crashed, just as the simulation intended. He checked himself for injuries. The simulation had given him a fractured arm and various cuts and bruises. The pain felt completely real. He forced open the pod door and stumbled out into a rocky landscape. Mountains rose in the distance. The sky was dark and stormy. He was alone, separated from his team, with limited supplies and an injury that would slow him down significantly. Danny took stock of his situation. He had a basic medical kit, some rations, a navigation device, and a practice weapon. The rally point was 40 kilometers away, through hostile terrain. He had 72 hours to get there. He splinted his arm using materials from his kit and started walking. The pain was constant, but he had learned to work through pain. The bigger problem was that he was moving slowly. At this pace, he would barely make it in time. On the second day, Danny encountered enemy forces in the simulation. They were AI-controlled adversaries designed to hunt down recruits. He was outnumbered 5-1. In a direct fight, he would lose immediately, so he did not fight. Instead, Danny used the terrain. He found a narrow canyon and led the enemies into it, then triggered a small rock slide using his weapon. The enemies were blocked, not defeated, but he had bought himself time to escape. It was not honorable combat the way Crothians would fight. It was practical survival. Meanwhile, Zara faced her own challenges. She had landed near enemy patrols, and her instinct was to fight them head-on. She was a Crothian warrior, and warriors did not run from battle. But she remembered what Danny had taught her about choosing battles wisely. She assessed the situation and realized that fighting would only delay her and risk failure. She swallowed her pride and evaded the patrols instead. Clix had become separated in a way that left him isolated from any other Chitara presence. The loneliness was crushing for him, but he used the breathing techniques Danny had shown him. He acknowledged the discomfort and kept moving forward. Prism encountered a series of unpredictable obstacles that defied logical planning. Normally this would have sent the Lumen into a spiral of confusion. Instead, Prism remembered Danny's advice about embracing controlled chaos. When you cannot predict outcomes, you adapt to them as they come. On day 4, the team began reuniting at the rally point. Zara arrived first, then Clix, then Prism. They waited anxiously for Danny and the other 2 team members. One of the others arrived badly injured. The 6th member did not arrive at all, having washed out of the simulation. Danny appeared last, limping badly, his simulated arm still splinted, looking exhausted, but he had made it.
"You look terrible," Zara said, helping him sit down.
"Feel worse," Danny admitted. "But I'm here." They rested briefly, then reviewed their next objective. They needed to reach an extraction zone 100 kilometers away, through territory now swarming with enemy forces. The simulation had ramped up the difficulty significantly. "This is designed to make us fail," Prism observed. "Enemy density is triple what our briefing suggested. Our team is reduced and injured. Mathematical probability of success is now approximately 2%. 2% is better than 0, Danny said. "What are our assets?" They took inventory. Limited ammunition, some medical supplies, food for about 3 days if they rationed carefully. The injured teammate could barely walk. Danny's arm was useless. But they had their training in each other. "We need a strategy that does not rely on strength or direct combat," Danny said. "Because we will lose any straight fight." "That is cowardice," the injured Crothian teammate said harshly. "We should fight our way through." "We should survive," Zara countered, surprising everyone. "Danny is right. This is not about proving courage. It is about completing the mission." They debated strategies for an hour. The traditional military approach would be to move quickly and aggressively, fighting when necessary, but Danny suggested something different. "What if we change the game?" he said. "The simulation expects us to sneak or fight. What if we do neither?" "Explain," Prism requested. "The enemy forces are AI, right?" Danny said. "They are following programming. What if we find a way to make them think we are not worth pursuing? Or better yet, what if we convince them we are supposed to be there?" "That is absurd," the injured Crothian said. "How would we possibly do that?" Danny smiled despite his exhaustion. "By being creative, by doing what the simulation does not expect, by remembering that rules are not the same as physics. Rules can be bent." Over the next several hours, they developed an unconventional plan. It involved using captured enemy equipment, manipulating communication channels, and creating diversions. It was risky and strange, and it went against standard military doctrine, but everyone agreed it had a better chance than trying to fight their way through impossible odds. On day 7, they put the plan into action. Using the equipment salvaged from defeated enemy patrols, they disguised their communications to sound like internal enemy traffic. They created false reports of threats in other areas, drawing forces away from their path. When they encountered checkpoints, they used confusion and misdirection instead of combat. It was working, they were making progress. But on day 8, disaster struck. An enemy patrol saw through their deception. Suddenly they were surrounded, heavily outnumbered, with nowhere to run. The injured Crothian wanted to fight to the death, maintaining honor in defeat. But Zara stopped him. "There is another option," she said. She looked at Danny. "An option that requires us to think differently about what victory means." "You want to surrender?" "Not surrender," Zara said. "Negotiate." The others stared at her in shock. Surrendering or negotiating with the enemy was not part of standard training scenarios. The simulation was designed with only 2 outcomes, fight or fail. "The simulation has never programmed for this possibility," Prism said, its form brightening with realization. "It assumes we will follow conventional warrior behavior." "Exactly," Danny said. "So we do something unconventional. We treat this like a real situation where the enemy is not just mindless opponents, but rational actors with their own goals." "This could fail spectacularly," Clix said, antenna twitching nervously. "It could," Danny agreed. "But we are failing anyway if we fight. At least this way we are trying something new." They made their choice. Instead of fighting, they opened a communication channel to the enemy forces. They proposed a parley. The AI paused, clearly not programmed for this scenario. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then something unprecedented occurred. The simulation itself seemed to hesitate, as if the system was trying to decide what to do with this unexpected development. The enemy forces stopped advancing but did not retreat. In the observation center, Vexthor and the other instructors watched in amazement. "They are attempting to negotiate with the simulation," Crystal said, disbelief in her voice. "That is not possible. That is not how the gauntlet works." "No," Vexthor said slowly, a strange expression on his face. "It is not how the gauntlet has ever worked before." "Should we terminate the simulation?" Cord asked. Vexthor considered this. The gauntlet had rules. Centuries of tradition. But he thought about Danny's journey, about how the human had consistently found ways around obstacles that seemed impossible. He thought about true adaptability, true creative thinking. "No," Vexthor said finally. "Let us see what happens. Let us see if they can break the unbreakable test." In the simulation, Danny and his team waited for a response. The enemy AI finally processed their unprecedented action. A communication channel opened, and the game changed completely. The communication channel crackled to life. A synthesized voice spoke through their equipment, representing the AI-controlled enemy commander. "State your terms," the voice said. Danny and his team exchanged glances. They had not actually expected this to work. Now they had to follow through. "We are not your enemy," Danny said carefully, speaking into the communicator. "We are training recruits trying to reach an extraction point. You are programmed to stop us." "But what if there was a solution that benefits both sides?" "Explain," the AI voice responded. Danny thought quickly. "Your objective is to prevent unauthorized forces from reaching the extraction zone. Our objective is to complete our training mission. What if we could prove we are authorized? What if we could provide you with intelligence that helps your mission while you allow us safe passage?" There was a long pause. In the observation room, the instructors leaned forward, fascinated. "The AI is actually processing this?" Crystal said in wonder. "It is considering their proposal as if this were a real diplomatic situation." "Because they forced it to," Vexthor said, a hint of admiration in his voice. "They found the edge of the simulation's programming and pushed beyond it." Back in the simulation, the AI responded. "Proposal accepted. Provide intelligence, and passage will be granted to authorized personnel." Danny's team scrambled to put together information that would satisfy the AI. They used their knowledge of the simulation's layout to provide tactical data about simulated rebel positions and weaknesses in defense networks. It was all fictional information within the simulation, but it followed logical patterns that the AI could process. The AI accepted their intelligence. The enemy forces withdrew, creating a corridor for them to pass through. Danny's team moved quickly, hardly believing their luck. They had turned enemies into temporary allies through nothing but creative thinking and communication. "This is insane," the injured Crothian said as they moved through the corridor. "This should not have worked, but it did," Zara said, "because we stopped thinking like the simulation expected us to think." They made it another 30 kilometers before encountering a new problem. The extraction zone was heavily fortified, and their negotiation trick would not work twice. They had 24 hours left, and one final obstacle. The team gathered to plan. They were exhausted, injured, and running low on supplies. A direct assault was impossible. Sneaking through was nearly impossible with their injuries. "We need another unexpected solution," Prism said, "but I am uncertain what options remain." Danny sat quietly thinking. His simulated arm throbbed with pain. His legs ached from days of constant movement. But his mind was still working, still looking for angles that others might miss. "What if we are thinking about this wrong?" Danny said finally. "We keep trying to get past obstacles, but what if the real test is not about getting past them at all?" "What do you mean?" Clix asked. "Think about everything Vexthor has taught us," Danny said. "Physical strength, mental resilience, tactical thinking, but also adaptability. The ability to recognize when the mission parameters need to change. What if the gauntlet is not about reaching the extraction zone the way we planned? What if it is about recognizing when to change the plan entirely?" "You want to abandon the objective?" the injured Crothian said, shocked. "No," Danny said. "I want to redefine it. The goal is not really to reach a specific location. The goal is to demonstrate that we can lead, adapt, and make smart decisions under pressure. What demonstrates that better? Stubbornly pursuing an impossible objective, or recognizing when to call for alternative extraction? You want to request emergency extraction from our current position." "Why not?" Danny said. "In a real combat situation, if your team is injured and the primary extraction point is compromised, you call for backup. You adapt. You survive to fight another day." That feels like quitting, the Crothian said. It feels like leadership, Zara countered. It feels like putting team survival above ego. They debated for another hour. Finally, they made their decision. They would request emergency extraction from their current position, documenting their reasoning: heavy casualties, compromised primary objective, higher probability of mission success through tactical adaptation. Danny sent the request through official channels. Then they waited. In the observation room, alarms sounded. An instructor turned to Vexthor. Martinez's team is requesting emergency extraction. They are not even attempting the final objective. I see that, Vexthor said calmly. Should we deny the request? Force them to complete the scenario as designed? Vexthor stared at the screens showing Danny's team. They had set up a defensive position and were treating their wounded while they waited for a response. They looked exhausted but determined. They had made a choice based on tactical reasoning rather than pride. How many teams have requested emergency extraction in the history of the Gauntlet? Vexthor asked. None, Court said. It has never occurred to anyone to request it. The Gauntlet is about pushing through impossible odds, not about asking for rescue. Exactly, Vexthor said. It has never occurred to anyone because they were too focused on the expected path. Martinez and his team recognized that survival and smart decision-making matter more than blind persistence. He paused. Grant the extraction request, the other instructors protested. But, sir, they did not complete the objective. They will have failed the Gauntlet. Did they? Vexthor asked. Or did they complete a different objective that we did not know we were testing? The objective of recognizing when adaptation matters more than stubbornness? He activated his communicator. Martinez, this is Drill Sergeant Vexthor. Your emergency extraction request is approved. Extraction team is en route. Congratulations. You have completed the Gauntlet. In the simulation, Danny's team heard the message and erupted in shocked celebration. They had done it. Not the way anyone expected, but they had done it. The simulation faded, and they found themselves back in the training facility. Exhausted, injured from the simulation's realistic effects, but victorious. Other teams emerged from their own simulations. Some had succeeded through traditional means. Many had failed. 3 days later, graduation day arrived. The surviving recruits stood in formation on the parade ground. Out of the original 60 recruits who had started 6 months ago, only 24 remained. Danny stood with Zara, Clix, and Prism, all of them in crisp dress uniforms. Vexthor walked along the line of graduates, looking at each one with pride. When he reached Danny, he stopped. Martinez, Vexthor said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I told you on the first day that this program would break you. I spent 6 months trying to find your breaking point. Do you know what I discovered? What is that, sir? Danny asked. I discovered that breaking is not the weakness I thought it was, Vexthor said. Every warrior breaks eventually. The difference is what happens next. Some warriors stay broken. Others acknowledge the break, adapt, and continue forward. You taught me that humans have spent their entire history being broken and continuing anyway. That is not a weakness. That is perhaps the greatest strength any species can possess. Vexthor stepped back and addressed all the graduates. You come from a dozen different worlds. Each of your species has natural advantages. Superior strength, enhanced senses, specialized abilities. But I want you to remember something as you go forward in your service. The human standing among you has none of those advantages. He is weaker, slower, and more fragile than most of you. And yet he not only survived this program, he changed it. He looked at Danny again. You forced us to question our assumptions about strength, about honor, about what it means to be unbreakable. You showed us that the most dangerous warrior is not the one who never breaks, but the one who breaks and keeps fighting anyway. The one who adapts when others follow outdated protocols. The one who finds solutions that no one else considered. Vexthor began distributing commendations. When he reached Danny, he presented him with not just a graduation certificate, but an additional honor. Martinez, you are hereby promoted to junior officer and assigned to lead a mixed-species unit in the Interstellar Defense Force. Your team will consist of volunteers from this graduating class who specifically requested to serve under your command. Danny was stunned. Sir, I am honored, but surely there are others more qualified. Are there? Vexthor asked. Tell me, who else turned a training program designed to break individuals into a support network that made everyone stronger? Who else taught warriors from a dozen species to manage their emotions effectively? Who else looked at impossible situations and consistently found unexpected solutions? He placed a hand on Danny's shoulder, a gesture of deep respect in Crothian culture. You asked me on the first day when the breaking would start. I will tell you now. It started the moment you arrived. You were already broken by your past, by loss, by struggle, but you learned something that many warriors never learn. Being broken is not the end. It is simply another beginning. The graduation ceremony concluded with each recruit receiving their assignments. Zara, Clix, and Prism all volunteered to join Danny's unit, along with several others. They would ship out in 2 weeks to begin their actual service. That evening, Danny found Vexthor alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Thank you, sir," Danny said, "for everything, for pushing me. For not giving up on me even when I was obviously the weakest recruit." "I did give up on you," Vexthor admitted. "Multiple times. I thought you would quit in the first week. When you did not, I thought you would break in the psychological trials. When you survived those, I thought the gauntlet would finally defeat you. You proved me wrong at every turn. I almost quit a dozen times," Danny confessed. "There were moments when I wanted to give up so badly, when the pain felt like too much, when I thought I could not take another step." "But you did take another step," Vexthor said. "That is the difference. That is what being unbreakable truly means. Not the absence of breaking, but the refusal to let breaking be final." Danny looked out at the stars, thinking about where he would go next, what challenges awaited him. "You know what is funny? I came here thinking I had to prove humans could match other species. But I think I actually proved something different." "What is that?" "That we do not need to match them," Danny said. "We bring something different to the table, something that comes from being the underdog for our entire history. And maybe that is exactly what the galaxy needs. Not more warriors who rely on natural advantages, but warriors who learn to thrive despite having every disadvantage." Vexthor nodded slowly. "When I first saw you, I thought, this fragile human will be broken easily. Now when I look at you, I think this is what unbreakable looks like. You changed my understanding of strength itself." A group of new recruits was arriving on the next transport, beginning their own 6-month journey. Danny watched their shuttle approach. "Do you think you will go easier on the next human recruit?" Danny asked with a slight smile. "Absolutely not," Vexthor said, showing his teeth in a Crothian grin. "But I will watch them more carefully. I will look for that quality you possess, that human refusal to accept defeat as permanent. And if I see it, I will nurture it instead of trying to crush it." Later, Danny met with his new team. They gathered in a conference room to discuss their upcoming assignment. "So," Zara said, "our human leader. Where do we start?" Danny thought about everything he had learned over the past 6 months. About pushing through pain, about adapting to impossible situations, about finding strength in unexpected places. "We start by being honest with ourselves," Danny said. "We are all going to face situations that break us, that hurt us, that make us want to quit. The question is not whether we will be broken. The question is what we do after. Do we stay down, or do we get back up?" "Get back up," Click said firmly. "Every time," Prism added. "No matter what," Zara finished. Danny smiled at his team. "Then I think we are going to do just fine."